Hi, boys and girls. My name is Mr. Fox, and I'm here at Linda Elementary School in beautiful Linda, California. Today I'm going to read a book called Cinderella, a Wild Western Cinderella. It's written by Susan Lowell and illustrated by Jane Manning. Once there was a rancher who married for his second wife the orneriest woman west of the Mississippi. She was meaner than a rattlesnake, and she had two daughters who were the spitting image of her. The rancher also had a daughter who was just as sweet and gentle as she could be. Her name was Cinderella. Well, here's the family. There's Dad, and there's his wife getting hitched, and there's the daughters. Cindy was a pretty good cowgirl, too. Riding her little gray horse, she wrangled and roped and galloped and loped with the best buckaroos on the range. But as soon as the wedding was over, that snaky old stepmother began to pick on poor Cinderella. She was so good, she made her stepsisters look bad. So her stepmother made her do all the dirty work around the ranch. Mend those fences, tend those cows, she would yell, and shove out that corral. The stepsisters never did a lick of work all day, but Cindy didn't dare complain to her daddy because his new wife wore the pants in the family. When her chores were done, the poor girl used to sit down and rest among the ashes and cinders at the edge of the fireplace. So her older stepsisters named her Cinder Bottom. The younger sister called her Cinderella. But underneath her dirty old clothes, Cinderella was still as pretty as a peach. Boy, here's that stepmother giving her what for, telling her to patch up those post fence and look at the girls behind. They're plain doing nothing. Then one day, the biggest cattle king for miles around invited all his neighbors to a 2-day celebration. First, a wild and woolly rodeo, and then a square dance, a real Western fandango. Cindy's stepsisters puffed up like two turkey gobblers. Even though they couldn't ride, they decided to gussy themselves up fit to kill and enter the rodeo. Nice, patient Cinderella ironed the frilly sheet and frizzled their hair for them. "Don't you wish that you could go too, Cinderbottom?" sneered the older sister. "Aw, you're just poking fun at me," said Cindy sadly. "You're right," laughed the little younger sister. "Nobody could tell you from a cloud of dust, Cinderella." Well, here they are. They're looking in the mirror. I'm surprised the mirror doesn't break. And you can see there's precious Cinderella. Oh, look at the patch on her arm there. She's wearing old clothes, hand-me-downs. And she's putting the frizz out of that ugly sister's hair. As soon as they were all gone, poor Cinderella broke down and cried. Then suddenly she heard a noise outside, almost like gunfire, but not quite. It wasn't bang bang, it was more like bing bing. And there stood a little old lady with a golden pistol still smoking in her hand. "Who are you?" gasped Cinderella. "Say hello to your fairy godmother, Sugarfoot," the old lady said. She twirled the pistol, slapped it back into her holster, and took a good hard look at Cindy. "What's the matter with you, honey? You're as down and dirty as a flop-eared hound dog. Stand up straight. Dust yourself off." "I want to go to the rodeo," sobbed Cinderella. "Can you help?" "Maybe see and maybe no," said her fairy godmother. "Magic is plumb worthless without gumption. What you need first, gal, is some gravel in your gizzard. Grits, guts. Stop that tomfooling blubbering and let's get busy. Time's a wasting." She reached for her golden 6 gun, and Cindy yelled, "Don't shoot!" But her grandmother had already fired straight up in the air. Well, there's that grandmother, fairy grandmother. She's looking right at Cinderella. And poor Cinderella, she's a pitiful person. Bing ping! Glittery sparkles floated down from the sky and sprinkled Cindy all over with fairy dust. Suddenly her heart was filled with strange strength and happiness, and her rags turned into the finest riding clothes west of the east. A creamy white Stetson hat crowned her shiny hair, gold buckskin chaps encircled her legs, and a pretty little pair of cowboy boots hugged her feet like gloves. Buckled to the heel of each boot was a spur that shot out a ray of fiery light. Those spurs were set with diamonds as big as sugar lumps. "Now," said her fairy godmother briskly, "where's that horse of yours?" She fired her magic pistol into the air. Zing! And Cindy's little gray horse became a little silver horse with a soft, sparkly coat. His hoofs glittered as he pawed the ground. "Hit the trail, honey," the old lady said. "Remember, there ain't no horse that can't be rode, and there ain't no man that can't be throwed. And one more thing, get home before midnight, gal, or you'll be sorry." Oh, here we go. How's she gonna look? Wow, I'm telling you, look at that Stetson hat, those gloves, and look at those diamond spurs. When Cindy Ellen pulled up at the rodeo, everybody turned and stared at the dazzling stranger on the silver horse. The rich rancher's son, a rodeo champion by the name of Joe Prince, came forward wearing the biggest belt buckle you ever saw and swept his hat off his head. "Pleased to meet you, ma'am," he said. "Likewise," said Cindy. Oh, look at him. Look at that belt buckle there. And he's got a Stetson hat too. And there's that champion looking horse. And there she is. Cinderella, look at those spurs shine. Wow. Just then, Cindy's older stepsister rode a bucking bronco into the arena, and before she could say oopsie daisy, that K-Soo wrinkled his spine, boiled over, and sent her chasing clouds way up in the sky. Then she bit the dust. Next came the second stepsister, but she couldn't ride a rail fence in a stiff breeze. And pretty soon she was eating gravel just like her sister. Cinderella helped her stepsisters up and brushed them off, but they never even recognized her. Then she remembered her godmother's gift of gumption, and she gave Joe Prince a big daredevil grin. My turn, said Cinderella. Well, there you go. There's one of the stepsisters eating dust. She don't look anything too happy to me. Cinderella climbed aboard a salty bronc with a belly full of bed springs and a real rip snorter. She touched him with her diamond spurs, and first he tried to crow hop, and then he cat back, and he sunfished, and he windmilled, and he jackknifed, but Cindy stuck to the saddle like a postage stamp. Ride 'em, cowgirl, cried the crowd, and Cinderella was the winner, with every curl in place. Next, with a figure eight, a butterfly, and a wedding ring, she won the trick roping event, and then she and her little horse really burned the breeze. They kicked the jackrabbits right off the trail. They left their shadows 20 miles behind them, and they won the horse race. They even beat Joe Prince, but Joe didn't seem to care. He rode herd on Cindy Ellen right up to 11:45 at night, when she suddenly recalled her godmother's warning and went galloping home. Well, look at her. She's roping and she's riding that bronco horse like that bronco horse has never been ridden. By the time she got there, her fine duds had shriveled into sorry rags again, but she still had plenty of gumption. After a while, her stepsisters hobbled in, all stoved up from the rodeo. Ha ha, you missed the champion cowgirls, the old sister sneered. Nobody knows her name or what she disappeared to. And that old Joe Prince is eating his heart out, said the younger one. I'll bet she comes to the square dance tomorrow night, said Cindy, with her new daredevil grin. The next evening, her stepsisters got all dressed up like a sore thumb and strutted away to the dance, leaving Cinderella all alone, but not for long. Oh, there they are, but those stepsisters are checking her out. But look at her. She's got a smile on her face. Huh. What's that? She said, peeking out the window. It looked like a cross between a comet and a dust storm. It sounded like silver bells mixed with dynamite. Let's get cracking, sweet pea, shouted her fairy godmother. You're late. Rustle me up the biggest, dustiest, lumpiest squash you can find. And zingo, the squash became a stagecoach. Next, we checked the trap lines, said her godmother. Quick as a wink, she turned 6 cactus mice into 6 dappling horses, a fat pack rack into a stagecoach driver, and a tough, rough horn toad into a stagecoach guard, riding shotgun beside the driver. Wow, what a look that is, no doubt. And there is Cinderella looking at a horn toad with her godmother. That is a fairy godmother. You know, I'm from New Mexico, and when I was a boy, we used to catch horned toads. I know all about them. But what about my ugly old clothes? Asked Cindy. The old lady answered with a blast of fairy dust that melted into a dress that shone like the sun, the moon, and all the stars together. The skirt floated over the petticoats as soft and puffy as summer clouds. A rainbow of jewels glowed around Cindy Ellen's neck, and the little diamond spur sparkled once more upon her boot heel. "Thank you, ma'am," she cried. The fairy godmother blew the smoke from her pistol, holstered it, and dusted off her hands. "Remember, Miss Cindy, pretty is as pretty does," she said. "Magic can backfire, midnight or bust." Cindy promised, and the stagecoach rumbled away. Twirling, swirling, Cindy Ellen lost track of time until all at once she heard the clock begin to strike 12. She hightailed it out of there lickety-split. "Whoa!" yelled Joe, hot on her heels, but he couldn't catch her. One of those diamond spurs fell off of Cindy's boot as she ran, though, and Joe picked it up carefully out of the dust. Well, there she was running, and there is that spur, and Joe Prince is picking it up right now. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, not a particle remained of Cindy's gorgeous outfit, except for the second diamond spur, which she tucked away in her hip pocket. Pretty soon word got out that the champion cowgirl was a wanted woman. She'd left Joe Prince so lovelorn that he was tracking her through the territory, and he vowed to marry the horsewoman whose boot fitted the little diamond spur. He tried it on many a foot, but not one could wear it. There's Joe Prince looking so forlorn. He can't find his girl. At last he came riding up to Cindy's father's place. "Go shovel out the stables," hissed the stepmother, and Cindy reluctantly obeyed. First, Joe tried the diamond spur on the youngest stepsister, but no matter how he stretched the straps, her hoof was too big. The oldest sister had crushed her feet into little bitty boots, so just for an instant the spur almost fit, but then her boot slipped open and her toes popped out like puppies from a basket, and Joe Prince muttered sorry and headed for the door. There he is trying to put the spurs on the boots of the ugly sisters. Ain't gonna. "My turn," said a voice that stopped him in his tracks. It was Cindy Ellen. And although her mean stepsisters almost died laughing, Joe let Cindy have her chance, fair and square. And when he put the diamond spur around her dirty little boot, it fit perfectly. Then she pulled out the second diamond spur and buckled it onto her other boot. And at that very moment, Cindy's little horse gave a whinny, and everybody heard a noise like, well, there we go. Joe is putting on the spur, and it's fitting perfectly. Wingo, wango, kazing. Let her rip, shouted Cindy Ellen's fairy godmother, brandishing her golden pistol. Hold your fire, yelled Joe Prince, but glistening sparks of fairy dust were already sprinkling down everywhere. They turned Cindy's clothes from cotton to satin, and they put quite a twinkle into Joe's eye, and Cindy's horse began to sparkle. Yee-haw, yelled the fairy godmother. Oh boy, she's looking pretty, and Joe's pretty happy. And there's the fairy godmother, all excited as well. So Cindy Ellen and Joe Prince got hitched and lived happily ever after in a ranch house full of love and rodeo trophies. Cindy's family moved to town where both stepsisters married city slickers, and Cindy's little horse kept his sparkle coat and his glittered hoofs to the end of his days. And there they are, just driving off, and that buggy says, just hitched. Well, here's a little Western lore to share with you. The true story of the West includes many cowgirls as well as cowboys. Just as they did long ago, ranch girls and boys still learn to ride and rope and tend their animals, especially at roundups. The Spanish word for roundup is rodeo, originally a time in the Old West when neighboring ranchers gathered and sorted their cattle. Then, when the work was done, they ate and visited and danced. But soon, rodeo became to mean a tournament of cowboys and cowgirls, skilled a cowboy circus or Olympics. One of the earliest Wild West stars was Annie Oakley, a world-famous sharpshooter. Although she couldn't even ride a horse when she was first joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show in 1885, she impressed her co-star, Chief Sitting Bull, so much that he nicknamed her Little Sure Shot. Later, rodeo cowgirls rode and fell off bucking broncos, performed daring stunts on horseback, roped and ran relays on racehorses. Nowadays, some cowgirl athletes compete in rodeo events such as bull and bronco riding, but most of them win their trophy money and fame as barrel riders riding hard and fast on some of the most valuable horses in rodeo. Afterward, these cowgirls still like to dance, but now they tap their shoes and twirl to country and western instead of square dance music. I'm Mr. Fox, and I'm here at Linda Elementary School in Linda, California. And by the way, we still have rodeos.